everybody. Welcome to At the Root with Greg Piper. Greg is a psychotherapist and holistic life coach. His practice, of course, is Kuiper Counseling. Through his professional practice and personal experiences, Greg knows that without connection with ourselves, connection with others is near impossible. Because, after all, emotional connection is at the root of healthy living. If you are interested in calling into the show, then please do so. We welcome it. The number is 425-373-5527. I'll say it again in case you're fumbling for a pen or pencil. It's 425-373-5527. And remember, if you are a little shy about calling into the show, you can always connect with Greg on his website, which is kuipercounseling.com. There you can find out more about Greg. There's a contact form. You can find past episodes of At the Root, resources, and even a link to his YouTube channel called Connection Through Awareness with Greg Kuiper. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Stacy.
How are you?
I'm doing well today. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day, and I feel strange. I'm zooming in today from home. So I'm not sitting right across from you. So I feel like we're doing telehealth today.
Telehealth today. That's right. At least I can see you, and you can see me.
Exactly. That's true. So that's important.
Well, telehealth. That's the way it is anymore.
It is.
Quite a bit.
And
yeah.
I was just going to say, and you see people face to face for sessions, but you also see them through telehealth. And you know what? Any communication, one could argue, is good communication.
It is. Yeah.
So, lately we have been very focused on listening, and I have been listening intently to this because I'm realizing that I constantly listen so that I can hurry up and have my turn versus listening to better understand.
Yeah, that's something I think that a vast majority of us can admit to, or not admit to, but we're doing it anyway, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just kind of the way that, I don't know, our lives have become, and society, and the way we grew up, and social media and the internet and everything. I mean, it's fast paced. It's multitasking, and so then we get to multitasking with our listening, and we miss a lot of things. And multitasking and listening intently for meaning from someone's sharing with you doesn't work very well. This doesn't.
No. And I think about it as a parent, I've got 3 kids that are out of the house, and, I don't speak to them all that often. And I realize that I need to be better about setting up dates where I set aside my computer and my phone, and I'm not multitasking. I don't see them as much. And even with my son that lives at home, that there's such a habit of having these things that are distracting, and I'm missing, which you talk a lot about, context and intent.
Yeah, it's important anymore that, especially with our loved ones, with close people, associates, people we really want to have good relationships with, connect with. It's important that we actually budget time, I guess, almost. I mean, it sounds strange. I have to budget time to talk to my wife. No, I don't think so. But planning, especially for busy parents, both working 40, 50 hours a week, 2 kids, preteens at home. Come on. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not just, slightly difficult. It's crazy. And I hear from a lot of couples I work with that are in that situation. And I mean, there is literally very little time to connect. And this is especially true now if you think of someone as a nurse or a firefighter or somebody with those off schedules, right? and
Right.
the other partner has a one of those 8 to 5s or 9 to 5s, and so there is this constant juggling of who's picking up the kids, who's dropping the kids off, who what bedtime is. I mean, sometimes, you know, 8 o'clock has to be a bedtime for a worker that gets up at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, and this is incredibly difficult for families to connect unless some specific time is just set aside.
Yeah.
I always encourage couples to try to find that, I don't know, 30 minutes at least, you know, once a week at the bare minimum, to just sit out, no distractions, and do a little planning, do a little talking about how the week went, try to
Mhm.
connect on a deeper level than passing in the hallway with a toothbrush in your hand. You know what I mean? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it's crazy for a lot of families these days, and
Yeah.
that's where this emotional connection piece starts to erode away a little bit, as it's just finding the time or making the time. It's not finding it, it's making it. I mean, we sometimes just have to prioritize that a little higher on the list.
Absolutely.
Or we
Early
always should.
on early on in our marriage, my husband and I, we made Tuesday night our date night. It was easier to get a babysitter.
Sure.
Weekends were reserved for friends and, concerts or whatever. And sometimes we spent the night just talking, like, hey, how are you? Sometimes it was planning grocery lists. It was a whole bunch of different things. And then we ate very late when the kids were little and old enough to stay awake because we wanted to eat as a family. So,
Right.
you know,
Well,
those are
that's
some things we,
excuse me. That's a tough one too. Eating as a family. I always encourage that, right? I mean, that is one time that a family can really connect. Put the phones away, put the screens away, sit down and have dinner. It's really hard. It's really
yeah,
hard because of soccer practice and dance practice and gymnastics, and I've got choir tonight, and whatever. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So where are we going from here then?
excuse me. Well, we've been spending this time recently talking about listening, right? And the last couple of weeks we've asked some pertinent questions regarding hearing more than just the words, and finding the intent of the speaker. And I think, we continue as we go on here to examine ourselves for the answers to the questions we've asked, like how often do we allow the intent of the speaker to be part of our hearing?
Mm,
Why do you think we struggle with tuning into this crucial piece of the communication, the intent, the context? Why? Why is our cognitive noise, the chatter in our head, so much more important than the sensitivities and information that our partner is sharing with us? Big questions.
mhm.
We've tackled them some, and we're going to continue to do so. What last week we've been focusing on that last question, right? The importance we unconsciously emphasize to the noise. That endless chatter, right, that runs in the background in our mind. It's just there. And we prioritize that unconsciously. When we're not focused and aware, there is this constant monologue carrying on filling this void. It's there when we're not aware of it. When we're focused and aware of it, it's not chatter, right? Because we're thinking about it. We're being aware of it. We're talking to it. We're having a conversation with ourselves, I guess, right? And I'm not implying that this is detrimental and negative all the time. No, not always. But it can be, right? We've all heard of the term negative self-talk.
Yeah.
And when this kind of self-deprecating diatribe gets rolling along in our minds, we suffer. We do. So, have you ever just stopped thinking and checked in with what your thoughts had been in that last few moments before you checked in? It's interesting, right?
Very.
This 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 self check-in is the key to finding the awareness of being in the present moment, right? That's what we've encouraged us be in the present moment. And if we can check in with what's going on, and as we've encouraged and talked about over and over again, with check in with our mind and our body, right? What's going on inside, that's being in the present moment. The chatter is off or out of sight, out of mind for that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's similar, right? Have you ever been driving in the car with your partner and it's been quiet, and then out of the blue somebody says, "What are you thinking about?"
Oh yeah.
Happens all
I
the
just
time, right?
totally, totally.
And or tell me what you're thinking, right? And how often are our answers to that question spot on with what we were thinking? Eh,
Never.
I know. Okay. Wasn't sure I was going to say never, but you're probably right. Never. Much of the
I,
time, I bet that we pause, right, or we stutter with an answer, struggling to create something to say that doesn't reflect the actual noise we'd have to admit to, right? I mean, so
totally.
so we've got that pregnant pause, or we think it is, where of a few seconds where we should be able to say what we were thinking of, and we're trying to create something.
Right. Because really, what we're thinking is like, man, you're a terrible driver, or, like, oh my God, I know this because I just drove home from our lake house with my husband, and it was, a 5 hour drive or
Sure.
5.5 hours
Yeah.
last night with traffic. And, it's like, I'm thinking, I'm a terrible singer and I'm singing along, and, he's quiet, and, these are the things that I'm thinking. And they're sometimes I'm busy with what my day's holding or whatever. Sometimes I'm just staring out into space. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, could he be any less or any more aggressive while he drives? I mean,
Or
they're not
or we're
always
stuck way
terrible.
back in the past on some ridiculous thing that happened in junior high or something, right? And then
Yes.
something triggered it. We brought it up. It's in our head, and oh my God, I'm not going to share that. I was thinking about that, right? But those are the moments of connection that we talk about a lot.
Hmm.
So we don't want to admit to the noise that was really going on. Can this noise we're talking about be positive and uplifting? Sure, it can, right? I mean, it's not all negative. Reliving happy memories or imagining exciting upcoming possibilities, right? Or opportunities. This creates a positive emotional experience in our mind, right? So it's
Sure.
hard to classify that as noise to me, right? And remember, whatever experiences we have going on in our mind at any moment, these experiences are creating detailed and complex neural pathways in our brain every second, reinforcing these experiences and laying down intricate maps with other neural pathways. This is an elaborate, complex process, and it's all dictated by whatever's in your mind at any moment. That's almost scary.
Hmm.
So, where do we want these complex maps to take our future, to take us? Positive destinations of emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical growth and well being, right? That's where we want these destinations to be. So, the experiences that are going in our mind probably shouldn't be, you know, uh, beating yourself up about making a minor mistake and swearing you'll never, do that experience again because you're no good at it and blah, blah, blah. I mean, so those neural pathways are just building like crazy on what you've got in your mind.
Hmm.
This internal monologue only becomes noisy, right, when we don't have the awareness in the moment to give it those gentle prods in more positive directions. So, um, the listening skills we've been talking about, nurturing and developing in our relationships with others, are best learned in our conversations with ourselves. Think about that one.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
Yeah. If we're going to learn to listen and and emote and connect with other people, we better know how to do it ourselves, with ourselves, right? When we turn the internal monologue, the noise, into an internal dialogue, we are in a state of awareness. We are in the here and now with that interaction. We are talking to ourselves. We are exploring possibilities.
Yeah.
So it's a dialogue. And it's hard to be a dialogue without some awareness, right? And so we wish to be in that state in our interactions with others as well.
It makes me think, we'll take a break after this, but um, it makes me think about I've struggled on and off with my weight through the years, and I remember doing Weight Watchers and getting into bed at night and thinking, before I was trying to do something about my weight, like, oh, I can't believe I ate, that sleeve of cookies or whatever it was. And so there was that negative monologue in my head, right?
Sure.
And then, I would do whatever fill in the blank fad diet. Then I'd get into bed and I'm like, I can't wait until I can eat 13 and a half almonds. And, that's also negative self-talk. And so I started going to bed listening to a guided meditation to fall asleep that was like, basically like, you're good, you know, and that then I could focus on that because I couldn't get out of my own head. So that's what this reminds me of. All right.
Well, and
Let's
that's what those guided meditations are so good for us. Is it taking the chatter away for the time that they're there, and communicating and with words or sharing, right? That conversation, that's connecting. It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How do we connect with ourselves in conversation? That's just something for as you're driving alone to think about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we do that so that we know what our inner self, who's in this conversation, or should be, right? The inner self, are we listening with the intent to hear it all, to our inner self? The intuition, right? I mean, that's part of this. Anyway, so
Well,
go ahead.
and I just want to add, and without thinking that we're crazy, like we judge each other's or ourselves rather so easily that like this is crazy. Like why am I talking to myself? And like, hello, you just did it. You're talking to yourself right there. So if you're going to have the inner monologue anyway, then you might as well say good things.
You might as well. Right. Last week, we talked about bridging the gap between our point of view and another's point of view, and making our way towards some respect for someone else's viewpoint. That's a big one in today's world. That's for sure. Not just in our daily lives at home or at work, but in the bigger scope of things too. It doesn't mean we have to agree. It just means listen with respect. And how do we honor differences with respect? It's a tough one when the differences, as we talked about last week, are so polarized. I mean, black and white, nothing gray. And how can we find respect for that difference that is way over there, not even in our realm of thinking? That's a tough one. And if we bring it into the context of a relationship with a spouse or a partner, we've got our unconscious patterning from the past, right? Our autopilot that we've talked about a lot. This is the autopilot functioning. And it provides for us automatic responses to behaviors and situations which were created from elaborate coping skills and defensive mechanisms we developed a long time ago to protect us from emotional harm. That was a
Hmm.
long sentence, but you know, our autopilot programs automatic responses to reactions and to behaviors and situations, and these responses are created by us to cope with emotional problems a long time ago, and then we just carry them along with us. Years later, we're still doing the same thing because it's automatic. It's been in
Right.
there, right? We've talked about this a lot. Many
Totally.
many times, these responses can result from a systematic error in thinking that occurs when processing and interpreting information. We called this cognitive bias last time.
Yep.
And as we mentioned in that conversation, many times these biases are our brain's attempt to simplify information processing, speed things up, get things going with relative speed. Or sometimes they're memory related. The way we remember an event may be biased for all kinds of reasons, right? And
Yep.
and or they may be related to how selective we are in what we're paying attention to. The awareness piece, right? What are we paying attention to? Regardless, these biases are operating in the background out of awareness. And one of these biases we spoke of is that one where we just have to be right. Remember, we talked about that.
Oh,
No matter what, we
yes.
got to be right. How many people do you know like that? Maybe me.
Uh,
I don't know.
Me, myself, and I. So that's three.
You know, when we're in a conversation with someone and there's a little back and forth going on, why do we need to be right so often? Many of us do, right? This unconscious need greatly affects our ability to listen. We're not listening because if someone is telling us something and while they're talking, we're scanning for clues that we can use to make this person feel wrong, right? And us feel right, then we are not listening to what's said. We're being said. We are trying to find that judgment piece in there. And if we dig around a bit, we can generally find some self-worth issues lingering from experiencing shame and guilt, right? Maybe high expectations that couldn't be met somewhere in our past, some shame, you know, we were never allowed to be right. We were never right, you know.
Right. This
Uh,
reminds me of like when you talk about like the judgment piece and almost like the attack as a means of defense, right? So we're feeling defensive and like we might be judged
mm-hmm.
and we might be minimized. And so instead, we do it to someone else first.
Right, right. Go on the offensive
Right, exactly.
before we have to go on the defensive. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we also talked briefly at the end of last time about the fixer bias, remember? And
Oh, yes.
we didn't have a lot of time, so I want to spend more time on this particularly insidious troublemaker in relationships. You know,
Right.
I see some form of this in almost every couple I work with. While one partner is sharing, the other is not listening to anything but the words, and is and maybe getting every other word, and in the process is formulating a solution to what they perceive to be their partner's problem. And the fixer has very little, if any, patience, and they are just waiting for their partner to shut up long enough to force their solution onto them, most of the time interrupting in the process, right? Because the fixer just can't stand to hear anymore. I've got the solution. And they interrupt. And, you know, the person who is wanting to share, I'll call him or her the speaker, okay? The speaker's desire to share is a bid for connection. The bid is an attempt at attunement. Remember attunement, the respectful, reciprocal exchange of sensitivities and information. So this bid by the speaker is an attempt at connecting. So it's a bid for an exchange, and not just of data, the information, but a heartfelt exchange that includes sensitivity and caring. Now, it's been my experience that fixers have a finely tuned radar to detect these bids, and within seconds they deflect the bid and move into solution mode. I mean, it's an instant response almost. Mm-hmm. And this is out of their awareness and part of their autopilot functioning, so they're not thinking about this. But where does this come from, right? Well, as with most unconscious patterning, it's a coping skill, I think, right? A defensive mechanism typically developed years and years ago to protect the fixer from emotional harm, right?
Yep.
Many times fixers are emotionally insecurely attached, typically of that avoidant variety, not always, but and early in their lives, emotional expression was not nurtured by their caregivers, and in many instances it was discouraged or criticized and shamed. Growing up under the influence of emotions was a weakness and not to be shown or experienced. So consequently, the fixer has little to no emotional intelligence or regulation.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But hey, anger.
I'm relating to this.
Anger may be easy for a fixer, right?
There it is.
Anger is one that's easy because anger is a cover-up, right? Many times for other emotions. I mean, if an avoidantly attached person is experiencing some kind of emotions that they can't label and can't figure out, then if anger or irritability shows up, it covers that up, and so that happens a lot of times. So I like this. The fixer is trapped in their own ignorance of emotions. Think about that. Okay,
I
you really
think
are.
About it. I want to be detached, Greg.
When we are trapped, think about it. When we're trapped, I said fixer is trapped in their own ignorance of emotions. So when we are trapped, what do we experience? Fear. And for the fixer, fear is not understood, right? It's an emotion. But it is felt biologically in that instinctive survival response. So for the fixer, it is felt biologically as an extreme discomfort. This discomfort is part of that finely tuned radar we spoke of a few minutes ago, right? And when it gets triggered, the fixer automatically moves into logically hearing only the words and providing an analysis and solution options, which deflects from the discomfort of the trap.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Are you a fixer by any chance? I must be hitting some buttons today over here.
I mean, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, so look, knowing this about the fixers allows me really compassion for their plight.
Thank you.
And that's a good thing because I am one. So I like to think I was one, right? But it's not something you change in yourself by just knowing what it is.
So it's not like I'm a fixer and therefore I am fixed.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
The years of programming, right, that you went through, that I went through, that all fixers go through, requires significant time for reprogramming if we're going to change this, right? I mean, you don't just flip a switch. And after a lot of hard work, I can pretty much these days catch myself fixing early on in the interaction, and sometimes, many times, prior to doing it. But a significant amount of this improvement for me can be credited to my partner as we've worked on this together over time. Right, and that's what I encourage with the couples I work with, and with anyone else listening who is or has a fixer in their life.
That's that curiosity piece that you're talking about, and not being judgy. And when it's happening, it's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, but I think about it, living with a fixer is not easy, right?
I mean,
especially if it's been
not.
going on for, think about it. Some of these, I speak with people and they've been living in that environment for 25, 30 years every day.
Yep.
And eventually, over that time period, the partner that's just trying to share and be open has basically just given up, right? They don't share anymore.
Right.
Or hardly at all. If they do, there's this anticipation, what they perceive as the dismissal of their feelings, right? They know it's going to come. There's an anticipation, and that anticipation is what many times prevents them from sharing and just being quiet. And so here you've got this couple that's haven't shared in a long time. Superficial stuff, this ongoing feeling of that person of not being important, of being dismissed. I hear that one a lot. I feel dismissed. This can very much play into self-worth issues of their own, right? I'm not important. What I have to offer is insignificant. This must be my fault, right? I mean, this can really play in there, and the interactions at this point between the partners are superficial at best, or angry, right? When the patience is thin, they can be angry interactions. So I'm painting a bleak picture here, but
I know this is terrible. Can we take a break? Can we take a break for a minute so I can lick my wounds?
Okay, let's take a break.
All right. Let's take a break, and when we come back, maybe there'll be a silver lining to this whole fixer thing and ways to help. So keep listening to At the Root with Greg Kuiper. We'll be right back.
Too many relationships are adversely affected by wounds from our past. Lack of connection, unhappiness, shame, and regret are just some of the fallouts we experience when we choose to avoid addressing those wounds. Greg Kuiper of Kuiper Counseling is a psychotherapist committed to reestablishing connection with self to create greater connection with others. His work with teens, individuals, couples, and those struggling with substance use. If you struggle with old wounds or unhealthy narratives, get to the root of them in yourself by contacting Greg Kuiper at kuipercounseling.com. That's kuipercounseling.com.
Whether it's fly fishing or French pastry, we all have something that makes our tail wag. Involuntary and instinctive, it's sparked by excitement, inspired by purpose, and it speaks to who we are. I'm Stacey Heller of Stacey Connects. I lead clients to the place that makes their tail wag. As a creative director, I bring ideas to life. As a podcast producer, I give ideas a voice. Stacey Connects. It's my superpower. If you want to connect with me, Stacey Heller, go to staceyconnects.com. Asking questions is better than making assumptions. Such is the premise of my show, Stacey Connects, a show about making connections through conversation. I welcome a diverse assortment of guests to chat about topics and ideas that are sometimes educational, sometimes inspirational, a little personal, and always entertaining. Every week, I draw out and befriend the elephant in the room so listeners can connect with the unexpected. Listen live Tuesdays from 3 to 4 on Alternative Talk 1150 KKNW.
Find our app in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and take us with you wherever you go. Alternative Talk AM 1150.
Welcome Welcome back to At the Root with Greg Kuiper. So, before the break, I was feeling sorry for myself because I am fully identifying as a fixer and recognizing that uh, I maybe don't listen as well as I should for both intent and content, and that I am really rushing to come to some conclusion. And Greg was talking about how some of this is because we need to feel right. We need to be heard. We need to, like, here, let me take care of this. And then there is also the angle I'm going to argue because,
Mm-hmm.
fixers will argue a point, that I I want to make it better for everybody. Now, probably I
Mm.
want to make them stop feeling, and I'm uncomfortable with the fact that they're feeling something, and so I want to patch it up as quickly as possible so that they can stop feeling these things. But it's not all that it's about me. It's also like I do in my head feel like I'm trying to keep them from the pain. And so I feel like maybe that's not the best thing.
Well, let's look at that. No, think about it. Yeah, I don't want people to hurt. What's wrong with that? But why are you keeping them from the pain during that interaction? Right? I mean, we all know that we need to feel our feelings.
Well, because then I'm going to have to feel, Greg.
Oh, there we go. Bingo.
Oh.
Well, yeah, and that's uncomfortable, right? It can be for the personality type we're talking about. It's and especially if and there are many people that of course it's a spectrum of various degrees, but there are people who have no idea about emotion at all, and I run into them all the time. I do. I mean, and it's not always the guy, by the way. It's
Clearly.
it's not. Yeah. They just. I we're working on an active listening piece in a session, let's say, and I'm coaching and mediating and try to draw this out, and I will ask the fixer, this person, what are you feeling? What did you hear? What did you feel in their comment to you? What are you feeling? Give me a feeling word. And they'll go, well, I feel good, or I feel, and I'm like, no, I need a feeling word.
I feel like they could have said that easier.
And then they might say sad, or
Yeah,
or one of those. But there are so many feeling words, so many. An emotional vocabulary is so important for all of us to have. To be able to say, not I'm sad, but I'm disappointed. Big difference. Yeah, there's some sadness in disappointment, but right, or desperate. What a word that is, right? But if somebody told you they were desperate, you'd get it, right? You would. If somebody said, and if they were feeling desperate, but they said, I'm just off, I feel sad, would you get that they're desperate? Probably not, right? And so it's and on the scale we're talking about with a person that has never gained that emotional vocabulary, and it's not their fault. Maybe a little bit that they didn't figure this out sooner, but nobody helped them, right? I mean, nobody knew. They didn't grow up that being modeled to them, and then they developed this mechanism, right? This coping mechanism we're talking about that keeps us from that discomfort, right? And if I help them not feel what they're feeling, then things are going to be better because that works for me.
Well, I had to pull myself up by my bootstraps.
Right.
Like I had to put on my big girl pants and like deal with it. And at least, that was the message. And what I'm hearing you say, wow, that's such a therapy thing to say. What I'm hearing you say though is that by me not allowing someone else to feel, I'm robbing them of the experience, and I'm really also robbing myself of the opportunity to learn how to feel without fixing.
Right. And to connect with their feeling. And that's the scary piece. That's that fear trap we talked about. And that's when there is no connection going on, right? There is no emotional connection because there's no emotion going on.
Right. So that's where you're talking about it being superficial, because then it's all surface, surface, surface.
Yep, you're fine. Yep, I'm good. Nope. How about you? Yep, no problem.
Right.
There you go.
How's your dinner? Good. Yeah. How's yours?
That's right.
I mean,
we're laughing, but I mean, everyone laugh with us because we all do this, right?
Right. Well, and think about those. You go out to dinner and you see a couple, and look around a room sometime at a restaurant, and you can see the people that still have lots to talk about, and the people that are hashing things out, and the people that are like, "How's yours? Good. How's yours?"
Yeah, they're on their phones. Yeah. Yeah. And now this isn't hopeless, right? It's not hopeless at all. But it requires, especially if it's been going on for years and years and years, and the person that's been feeling dismissed all this time. Now, as we talk about this and we work on it together, there starts to become some realization that their partner isn't an idiot or a jerk. They just kind of clueless, right? I don't like that word, but I hear it used a lot. He's clueless or she's clueless. Well, it just simply means that they don't know, right? They never learned. And so is that a defect in them, in their personality? Is that a defect in them as people? No, it's being uninformed, basically. And we've got to have some slack here on both sides if we're going to fix this, right? That person that's been dismissed all this time, ready to leave, doesn't care anymore, now hears that their partner wasn't really intending to do this, wasn't hurting them intentionally, just didn't know what was going on. And now, in order to have this connection that hopefully they still want, the partner has to learn about expressing, sharing, having emotions. Whew. That's a tall order, right?
Right.
I've waited all this time, and now we're understanding that my partner does not know about emotions, and that's the crux of this. And he is going to, or she is going to, dive into learning about emotions and interacting with me.
Two things I'm thinking of. One,
sure.
Who says you can't surprise your partner after 30 years?
That's true.
Look at me. Like my poor husband.
No, yeah.
But hey, look at me. We're learning something new about each other. And then the other thing I think about is the quote by Maya Angelou that is, when you know better, you do better. And so,
sure.
So for a long time, those of us that are fixers and that can identify with this, if we are clueless or uneducated or it wasn't modeled or whatever it is, okay. And so now the question is, now that we know better, are we committed to doing better?
Right. Well, that's a choice, right? I mean, that's a choice. Are you committed to doing it? If you are, if someone is committed to growth and they have a relationship with a partner and the partner wants to grow too, I guess my point is this can be done as a team effort, right? A we. And the we's been kind of missing in this relationship for a while, probably, right? Obviously, it has, if it was ever there. And so now, how do we nurture a we and we work on this together? And I learn how to cut slack, and I learn how to not be as needy for emotions. And my partner learns how to express emotions and share those emotional words with me, and we can talk about it together. So there's a we working together for a common goal, right? And this has to be done, in my opinion, but has to be done with curiosity and a sense of discovery, right? We can't cram this down each other's throats. We can't pretend that someone like me, an outsider, is going to fix it for us. A therapist in this case is just a guide, right, through this. And so we want to do this with a sense of curiosity and discovery, right? Positive, constructive way. A journey, right, together.
Right.
And after all, that's what started way back when this relationship started. That's what it was, right? As a journey. And so the journey carries on, hopefully, with this new knowledge and this new goal. And once we can work with this and move forwards, then true attunement can start blossoming, right? And that emotional connection can be felt by both partners, and that in itself is a drive to go onward. Just that feeling is, oh yeah, now we're getting it. Let's keep going, right? So the success, the reward, will help it roll, I think.
Well, and I'll go ahead and say it as the fixer in my relationship. I suspect that me acknowledging the behavior, that would be huge. It means that I'm being self-aware. And then the fact that I'm sharing that acknowledgement and learning how this impacts my partner and seeing how it makes him feel and talking about it. And just by virtue of the fact that I'm A, becoming self-aware, and B, acknowledging it, then that means C, I want to do something about it. And that is going to make him feel like I just bought some more patience. I just got some more time. Like I just created connection and, as you said, a we situation versus the me versus he situation.
Right. It can't be a competition, right? It has to be a mutual goal, both partners working towards, right? I mean, if it can get to a place, and it can very quickly if both people are committed and with a little coaching, you get to a place where you're just having an interaction and the one partner stops and goes, oh my God, I'm fixing, aren't I? And the other one goes, yeah, I didn't know. I wanted to see when you were going to catch it. And you go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's what I do. Okay. Well, I'm getting this, So here's the interaction instead of you're doing it again. You know what I mean? I mean, so, both partners being able to just use the lightheartedness of working together towards something to accomplish this. I don't know if but you were just fixing my problem there. I was just kind of wanting a shoulder. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was. See, or vice versa, right? Just, yeah.
Well, it goes back to, we sort of joked about it last week, and I'll say it again. It's like the safe word. It's like, oops, there it is.
Yeah,
or,
right.
Coming up with something that, kind of becomes, it instantly lightens things up so that you're holding a mirror to the behavior without holding up judgment to it.
Yeah, and a even neater part of this can be when the person that's been feeling dismissed all these years and knows emotion can help their partner feel emotion. Oh my God, this is incredible. It is. I watch it happen. You know,
Right.
you know, tell me what it's like feeling that, right? And the other partner talks about it, and then before you know it, they're both feeling it together, and that's the connection, right? And it's helping each other. There you go.
That's the gooey inside.
The gooey inside.
All right. Well, of course we're out of time. But I really appreciate this hour with you. I am going to work on this, and everyone else should. And, join me in listening for what other people have to say and focusing on the listening more than the fixing. Remember, you can connect with Greg at kuipercounseling.com. There you can find more episodes, contact, etc., etc. Greg, how do you want to send us off today?
Well, everyone, stay aware out there and pay attention to how you're listening this week. See you next week.
Bye.